Safe House is directed by Daniel Espinosa, who hasn't done very much. He's done a little bit of work in foreign and a few short films. This is kind of his first big thing here. But really, as you watch this movie, you'll notice that he's kind of, it feels very much like sort of a cross between Tony Scott sort of style, which, you know, the main star of the movie is Denzel Washington, who often works with Tony Scott, so that sort of brings that to mind as well, but also has real sort of a Paul Greengrass sort of Bourne Ultimatum sort of feel to it as well. And basically what this is about is Denzel Washington plays this known terrorist or person of national suspicion named Tobin Frost. It's like the best movie name I've heard in a while. Who is wanted for questioning by the U.S. government for acts of treason against his country, selling information from one country to another. He's kind of been off the grid for some amount of years. He's on the FBI wanted list. Everyone's supposed to know who he is. Ryan Reynolds plays the housekeeper of a safe house in South Africa, yeah, thank you. Named Matt Weston, and basically he has this thankless job of just sitting there and waiting for the action to happen. So as far as government jobs go, it's one of the more cushy ones. You know, literally he goes, he looks at cameras in rooms that are empty 99.9% of the time, and then goes home. Whereas he's lied to his girlfriend and tells him that, I don't know, he's a teacher or something. I don't know. Yeah. But his job is secret, but for the most part, fairly safe. So the conceit of this movie is, what if a safe house wasn't very safe at all? And Tobin Frost gets captured by the CIA. He's brought in for questioning at Ryan Reynolds' safe house. He finally gets to see some action after working there for a year, staring at empty rooms. And what's to happen but a gigantic raid by some terrorist faction who wants to glean information from Tobin Frost, who has a computer chip implanted in his body full of government secrets that can screw over the world. This is an all-right movie. I think it's very much it is what it is, and it, like I said, it feels a lot like a Paul Greengrass kind of thriller, like The Bourne Identity and The Bourne Ultimatum, and it's shot a little bit like a Tony Scott movie where there's a lot of kind of shaky cam and a lot of kind of these frenetic editing moments, and I feel a little too frenetic at times. There's a few like car chases, and you know, there's this big set piece that takes place in a soccer stadium. That's pretty well shot for the most part, but I think there's a lot of times where it's a little over-edited and I can't really tell who is where and what exactly is going on. And maybe because he's a first-time director, he has to try to build suspense and build a sense of chaos through editing rather than directing. But it's all right. I think there's a few twists in here, but nothing that's you know, earth-shattering surprises. But as far as a rental on a Saturday night, it'll keep you perfectly entertained. Denzel Washington's always good. He brings his A game no matter if it's in a B movie or not. And Ryan Reynolds, he's kind of playing it more low-key. It's more of his serious side, which generally I kind of prefer from him. And he does a pretty good job, too. They play off each other pretty nicely. It's all right. It's a B-.
B-. Nice. I totally agree with you. I gave it a B- as well. For the most part, yeah, I just thought this was a great little action movie. It's a lot more actiony than most spy game, like spy games, but most of those spy thriller kinds of things.
Yeah, espionage movies.
Yeah, but I have to admit, as far as espionage goes, this is pretty blatant and straightforward. You're kind of saying he has a secret and he's running away with it. There's usually a lot more trickery when it comes to espionage. A lot more who's the bad guy. This is very black and white. Who's the bad guy and stuff. So it's kind of refreshing, but as for when you're watching spy movies, you expect a lot more intrigue, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was a little.
It's a lot more about the cat and mouse rather than the information to be had.
Yeah, it's more about how many things can we blow up while running from this terrorist group. I was glad that Ryan Reynolds kept it serious. I thought it was going to be kind of like he's going to be like the Rob Schneider, just kind of They're like, oh, Denzel Washington's too serious. We're going to get Ryan Reynolds to be funny. And he wasn't. And I was like, okay, good. Yeah. I was afraid this is going to become stupid buddy cop movie or some terrible thing like that. But yeah, no, still had a good time with it. My buddy Jed watched it. And he said he started reading Game of Thrones instead. Like, he just picked up a book and started reading instead of watching the movie. Yeah, I was all like...
So it didn't do much for him, apparently.
So it didn't do much for him. So I was a little afraid going into it. This is going to be the most boring thing ever. It's going to be like, oh, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, kind of boring. One of them spy movies. Yeah. But no, plenty of action.
Pretty much an action movie.
Very American. Very blow everything up.
As far as the content goes, it's kind of surprising because there's this whole... I mean, if the movie's about anything, it's basically about how Americans may be feeling sort of disenfranchised with their government. Because at the beginning of the movie, they're interrogating him in the Tobin Frost in the safe room, and they're waterboarding him, which immediately brings to mind Guantanamo Bay. And there's a lot of stuff about can you trust your government, and when is the right decision, and all this gray area stuff. So I thought it was kind of interesting that the movie basically is holding up a hero who has like justified treason. It's kind of a throwback really to something that should have came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago when all that stuff was more in the news. But I don't know, food for thought. Yeah.